It's Thursday, May 2nd, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, we learn more about the Housing Choice Initiative bill currently making its way through the state legislative process, and we welcome the Assistant Town Manager to the studio, who has updates on economic development and wastewater projects. Now for a look at municipal and legislative news. The annual Youth Count Survey plays an essential role in improving understanding of youth homelessness and housing instability on the Cape and the Islands. The data collected from the survey helps to support policy reform and new program designs, as well as to improve the services offered by Cape and Islands providers. Wide distribution of the Youth Count survey is pivotal to the ability to support our most vulnerable youth. To learn more about or take the survey, visit www.hpccapecod.org. The Baker-Polito administration developed the Housing Choice Initiative to offer a combination of incentives, technical assistance, and new capital grant funding to facilitate community-led housing production across the Commonwealth. This diverse set of tools for communities is intended to create the conditions for sustainable housing development that meets the needs of current and future residents. During a visit to Hyannis, Lieutenant Governor Polito praised the town of Barnstable for their housing initiatives and becoming a housing choice community. She spoke about supporting a pathway to more sustainable workforce housing.
Barnstable has been a lead community here on the Cape and in our Commonwealth, thinking about housing as that economic development tool. They understand that they are more than a seasonal economy, and if they're going to continue to grow their year-round economy, they need places for people to live that are accessible and affordable. And to reimagine places like downtown Hyannis, which have traditionally been a destination for visitors, should be a community in a neighborhood where people will live year-round to work at, say, Cape Cod Hospital or any one of the businesses in this area. And they need places that they can afford, that are accessible, that are, and many times, called workforce housing, which is what we're featuring today in a building at 255 Main Street, which is one of the oldest buildings along this street, which was known for the trade component of its work, now being repurposed for workforce housing.
Welcome. And good afternoon. I'm Mark Ells, Town Manager here in Barnstable. And on behalf of the town of Barnstable and our town council, this is an exciting moment here that we are gathered to talk about Barnstable and our state of Massachusetts participating in the Housing Choice Initiative. We're certainly well aware of the challenges we have in the Commonwealth and in Barnstable relative to housing. And this sort of participation of our community and other communities certainly is needed to stay focused on the priorities. It's not only housing, it allows for the creation of jobs, it allows for us to maintain a well-balanced community. So we're very thankful and privileged that certainly I and our town council, our vice president, John Flores is here, Councilor Schnepp and Councilor Hebert is here as well, showing their support of this. But we're very privileged and honored to have our administration, certainly represented by our Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito here, who's been a wonderful partner, not only relative to housing issues, but on all issues. They are accessible at all times, they are responsive to our needs, and we can't say thank you enough to our governor and our lieutenant governor. So thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Having been someone who grew up here on the Cape in the summers, I completely recognize that this community has a tourism and a seasonal economy. But now the Cape has become so much more than that. This is a year-round community with industries like healthcare, beyond just the tourism, seasonal industries that need people to work at the jobs that are being created and growing here, and to have places that are accessible and affordable and convenient to live in order to be part of the year-round experience here on the Cape. And zoning reform in Massachusetts hasn't been undertaken for over 50 years. So clearly things have changed, the economy's changed, people are looking at seasonal communities like this and knowing that they're no longer seasonal and they need a new approach. So in order to get to that next level, you need to change the rules. And so Governor Baker and our team, and Secretary Keneally, who's here, will be speaking more about this as well, put out a bill last term and in this term to help communities change their local zoning and adopt the best practices and strategies that you need in order to redesign and redevelop neighborhoods and places within your community. And be able to adopt these zoning best practices with a simple majority vote. Because sometimes having a supermajority, having that 2/3 threshold, is a barrier to getting the zoning changes that are needed in order to create the kind of development and housing production that's needed. So the Housing Choice Bill would change that. It would empower communities to change their zoning bylaws of their choice, driven by the community's vision, and allow them to then create the housing production plan and create the units of housing that are needed for that next generation to be able to call that community home. So we're hoping that we can get this Housing Choice Bill done. That's the purpose of being here today, and to really spotlight the leadership here in Barnstable that is really sort of paving the way for your future. I want to thank again Mark Ells and the whole team for becoming a Housing Choice designated community. That means you had to create a housing production plan. You used $1 million of your community preservation funds to invest in infrastructure. And as part of this Housing Choice designation, we provided a small grant for infrastructure to be able to redevelop the property that is right behind us for the kinds of workforce housing units that Mike Loff and his team can use for their workforce and for others in this community. So you're actually standing in front of a living example, a real example of how a property can be reused for the kinds of housing that are needed in this neighborhood, and then scale this to do more, whether in this neighborhood or in places across this Commonwealth.
The Cape's housing market has been impacted by large and uncontrollable macroeconomic forces that include the rise of a strong Boston metro economy, the housing market crash of 2009, the baby boomers wanting to retire on beautiful Cape Cod, and then the desirability as a vacation destination, which is compounded by our isolated geography. Provincetown, in other words, can't really go 3 towns over for a workforce. They have to work within their constraints. So all of these forces, combined with our environmental protection, our growth control policies, have resulted in high demand for seasonal, retirement, and income-producing properties. We now have to pay attention to where the Cape Codders that work here all year round, where do they live? We are at a tipping point for the Cape's economic health if we do not address this housing criticality. That's why we applaud the Baker administration and the leadership shown here today, because it starts at the top. Our leaders have to say that this is not working well for us, and that we have to convince those of us that have a safe house, that are comfortable, that our neighbors and our fellow workers don't have the same opportunity. We must create that for them. So we applaud the filing of Bill H3507. We think it sets the table, again, for further housing solutions that will also include regional nuances, because while we all have the same problems, we do have certain challenges, including our seasonality here, which is really only, we have a great year-round economy. We just add a whole pile to it during 3 months of the summer. But we need initiatives that are going to support housing for a variety of lifestyle stages and a variety of lifestyles. We need housing solutions for seasonal workers, and we need zoning reform that's going to encourage smart growth and housing diversity while it maintains the village characters and our communities that we love so much. So we will continue as the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce to work with you and regional partners to develop new ideas so Cape Codders can continue to live, work, play in a place we all love.
The magnitude of this housing crisis requires that we respond proportionally by pushing multiple levers at the same time. The town of Barnstable should be applauded for taking such initiative. And as I mentioned earlier, a Ridgewood project of 8 units would not be going through if it weren't for the town of Barnstable. but we need more projects like Ridgewood in our region. And the Housing Choice Bill provides the legislative pathway to make that possible. There are many more legislative fixes that we need in addition to what's contained in this bill, but we can't let perfection be the enemy of good. We have full expectation that there'll be more legislative initiatives and more projects put forth that will be supported at the State House. We have to pass this legislation to make it easier so that at future town meetings, we can pass common sense initiatives. It makes no sense that we need a 2/3 majority of voters to let a homeowner rent an in-law apartment to a hardworking year-rounder. But right now on Cape Cod, it is easier to build a McMansion than a multifamily. It's easier to put an addition on a home and rent it seasonally than it is to rent it out year-round. Our zoning is inadvertently making it harder for year-rounders to live and work here. This legislation gives towns the tools to protect and preserve our way of life here on Cape Cod. We can reverse the trend. I'm very hopeful. We can keep families in our neighborhoods and in our schools. We can keep professionals here, ensuring our year-round economy continues to thrive, but we need housing. That's the critical piece in all of this. And in order to do that, the Housing Choice Bill is the first of many steps to sustain the beautiful Cape Cod that we know and love. Thank you.
The availability and the attainability of workforce housing is the most pressing issue. Yet what is missing among this very diverse and very powerful group of advocates and people with a vested interest is some of the necessary tools to actually get that work done. Those missing tools are found in the Housing Choice Bill. Those missing tools need to be adopted for the work that everyone is gathered here that is doing to move forward in an effective and a thoughtful manner for each of the Cape's 15 towns.
In closing, Barnstable is proud to have been listed as part of the Housing Choice Initiative. And Barnstable is appreciative of the support that we receive from our administration, and certainly having our Lieutenant Governor and Secretary and all of you here to share in this. And Barnstable stands committed to addressing the housing choice and housing challenges of our region and our state.
Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn joins us in studio to highlight some of the projects he has been working on for the town. With us today, Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn. We're going to talk about a myriad of projects that are out there that he's had his fingers in, and lots of updates. Lots of things going on. Andy, it's been a while since you've been on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So let's start off with one of the topics that's been there that's consumed an enormous amount of your time and other officials here in the town, the Cape Town Plaza.
Certainly. Well, just this past town council, we were fortunate enough to announce that we have finalized the material terms of the lease, which is an important milestone. We got town council's approval for the airport to enter into a 49-year lease with WS Development. So we're very, very pleased with that milestone and hope to have the final agreement signed in the next few months. So it was really a combination of probably close to 2 years of effort. It's a very unique property. As you know, it's people tend to refer to as the Kmart Plaza. So it is a municipal piece of property, certainly an undervalued asset that we've had, and that's controlled by the airport. So along with that, the airport has control. They have a lease. They actually have a current lease in place with WS. And there's a number of stipulations that come along with that piece of property because of how it was acquired and with the FAA. So there's FAA conditions that have to be met with anything that you do there. So it was a challenging project, and we're really thrilled with how it turned out and where we're going. I think we've got a fantastic partner in WS moving forward.
That's interesting. The property itself, I don't believe all the residents know the enormous perimeter property that airport holds.
Yes, they do.
It's
They're
a lot.
they control a significant portion of property outside of the fence line.
Right.
And a lot of that property, really, it's controlled and the leases are let through the airport. Katie Service and her staff do a great job, but we support them. It's Joanna Boucher, David Anthony, and all of our staff really support them and anytime they put those leases out, et cetera. And this is by far the largest piece, and one of the most important pieces, obviously, being on Route 132, being our economic center, and really the economic hub of the Cape, is a very important process that we went through, and we really appreciate WS's willing to work with us through that. I think it was unique for them as well. I mean, to start out, they currently hold a lease until 2024, so just to get to the point where we were going to negotiate a lease that isn't up for 4 years was rather unique, and Jim Crocker was instrumental. He and Eric both really helped us negotiate to the point to get the airport and the airport commission comfortable with going out that early in the process. And then Katie Service and I really took lead on getting the FAA involved and getting them comfortable with the idea of an agreement period where we go out and get a developer on board before the lease ends. And that's not something that's typically done, so we were very fortunate to be able to do that. And then the lease itself, it being a 49-year lease, is unique.
Right.
That's something that typically the leases on the airport commission handles, but because of the term, it comes back to town council. We are the airport's financial backstop, so and it's obviously important to us in that regard, but it's also important to us because of its location and being on that economic, like I mentioned, the economic hub of the Cape. It was unique because WS, while they were negotiating a lease, a request for proposal for the airport, a ground lease, we weren't just interested in what they're willing to pay us for a ground lease, pay the airport for the ground lease, but the town has concerns. One of our biggest concerns was Blythe. And they're a world-class developer, and they've got a business model that works, and we certainly didn't want to intercede and in any way inhibit how they develop the property, but at the same time, we needed to have some hard goals in there to guarantee against Blythe. So much work went into getting to yes on those issues, and we're thrilled with where it ended up. We have a $150 million deal. So to put that in relative terms, currently we get about $70,000 a year for that parcel. Certainly that's an underperforming asset, but we're going to get more, just for the ground lease itself, more revenue for the airport per month than we currently get per year. So it's significant. It really is going to ensure the economic feasibility for the airport for decades to come. It's really a windfall. And really for the town, we would be thrilled for a company like WS Development to come in and do this type of development on their own property or someone else's property and get just the new growth dollars. We're looking to get a significant amount of money as they develop. If they invest $50 or $60 million of their money in the infrastructure, we would obviously get tax benefits from that. And not to mention jobs, et cetera, all of those ancillary things that go along with that. But to get that and then on top of it, be the landholder and be able to negotiate a lease that's worth $150 million is, it's a grand slam home run.
It's a grand slam, yeah.
And we negotiated terms to where we also have a percentage, we're really partners, a percentage of their revenue. So the more money WS is able to make, the more money the airport will see as well. So that's great.
And they've been innovative in some of their other properties off Cape, doing some different things with, not making it just a total retail center as they're adding some green space, and they're doing some other innovative things to bring people there. Again, you said it's the economic corridor, so once they go in and do theirs, then you look at that as a ripple effect all the way down Route 132.
Certainly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great work.
Thanks. Yeah.
And then there's Joint Base Cape Cod, who seems to be a partner in a lot of different things
They are.
with the town now.
They are. A lot's going on with Joint Base Cape Cod. Before joining the town, I was one of those commanders of Joint Base Cape Cod, so I'm pretty familiar. And I'm pretty excited with, where we've been able to go with Joint Base Cape Cod. It's interesting. after I retired, hearing a lot of the perception of Joint Base Cape Cod in the Cape Cod area, and it's a challenge for them, I think, really to get out and engage the community and be partners in different things. They go around annually and brief the different towns on what's happening at Joint Base Cape Cod. But there's really a desire there to work with, especially the abutting communities, but really it's a regional asset, and that's how they view it. I know they've worked for years to try and bring in economic development, et cetera, mass development. The current executive director of Joint Base Cape Cod, Brigadier General Foe, has a vision of a premier law enforcement and first responder training facility, and that's very fortuitous for us in that we have the Barnstable County Fire Training Academy that's looking for a new home. So we were able to get an audience with Jack Units and his staff with the general, and the timing was fantastic, and they're looking at the possibility of relocating that to the base. And as part of that, it also opened the door to the police academy. So that somewhat went on a little faster pace, certainly faster than I've ever seen anything on base. Right. Within 6 months of those initial conversations, we have a Cape Cod Police Academy starting in July there, 45 new recruits. So that's fantastic.
Chief Sonovan is overjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all the chiefs did great work to facilitate that. And I'm confident all the fire chiefs are going to do the same. And our first responders deserve a world-class training facility, and certainly there's a lot that goes on to bring that to fruition, but I think it's on the right path, and we can't thank the base enough for their willingness to work with us. The other thing going on at the base, for years, you hear often of BRAC, base realignment or closure, and they're always working to BRAC-proof or to guard against BRAC, and part of that is infrastructure. A lot of changes have occurred on base. Currently, there's a 102nd Intelligence Wing that doesn't need to be the landlord of so much land. They have it doesn't take rocket science to look at a map and see how large that facility is. And they have a massive amount of infrastructure that really they don't need anymore. And part of that is their utility system. So their water and wastewater treatment facilities are underutilized, very underutilized. And the abutting towns, the 4 Upper Cape towns, Bourne, Mashpee, Falmouth, and Sandwich, have been working for a while to see if they could better utilize those facilities. They got a state grant about 2 years ago to really start taking a more deep dive into the wastewater front. And we were fortunate enough in our conversations on some of these other issues to be asked for the town to join those 4 Upper Cape towns and really taking a hard look at future expansion capabilities of their wastewater treatment, and most importantly, effluent discharge. I mean, that's the limiting factor in a lot is, you can treat to a certain potential, but there's only so much land on Cape Cod, and sooner or later we're going to run up against, capacity issues of where that effluent goes. And we were thrilled to join those Upper 4 Cape towns. We've been meeting monthly, actually meet with the managers again tomorrow. And a week from now, we have a large kickoff with EPA, DEP, et cetera, to really take a hard look and get the answers on what can and can't be done with regard to that effluent discharge. So that really, long-term, could be a home run again for us. So.
Amazing, and even just in the news this past week was I guess they're doing something with cybersecurity and UMass Dartmouth as well. So there's not only infrastructure, but there's jobs coming back to that facility as well. Their resources and their assets there are, like you said, all of Cape Cod.
They are, and they were just to see that they are willing partners. I know that's always been a struggle for them. It's well, that's behind the gate type of thing. That's behind the fence. That's scary base, and it's really good to see some progress made in that regard and some actual tangible projects being completed and partnerships being forged, and I'm very optimistic.
And a little bit, just to back up a little bit, the ability for us to find some solutions for sewer and wastewater, as people talk about, laying pipe right?
Right.
We all
Big pipe.
understand how much that costs. Well, we don't know how much it costs, but
A
we
lot.
have a
A
lot,
lot.
right?
Yeah.
But being able to maybe go in a different direction than down 28 for those western villages, for Katuitt, you know, the Three
Certainly.
Bays region is really one of those areas that is being addressed. It has to be addressed. And being able to have a second solution sort of at our fingertips is really critical to the town, isn't it?
It is. Well, I think that we know that we need to look at all approaches. Sewering is one solution. We're going to be looking at alternative solutions as well. And I know you've got Dan Santos and Rob Steen coming in here doing
Right.
PSAs, really explaining all of that. And we're very fortunate to have that professional staff as well as
Right.
Mark Ells, you know,
Right.
that really know that. And we had a extensive public outreach with the RAC committee, and you know, to get that 208 plan, and we're on the precipice of getting that submitted in the upcoming months. And I really think that, you know, where we're suggesting sewering should go, that is a solid plan, and I don't know that this will change it, but it could change the phasing of it, certainly. You know, we look to logically expand from our existing facility. Well, that calculation, what we may be getting to at sewering a Katuitt or a Mills or something like that, that may have been in your 30 or 40 of a plan, if all of a sudden there's discharge capacity, you know, at that town line going through Sandwich, Mashpee onto the base, it could change the calculus of what makes the most sense, has the biggest impact, and is most affordable. So, you know, I really, we're excited that it's just another option out there to help solve a very, very large problem that we're all facing. You know, it's not just us. And
Right.
to have a regional approach, we're excited to join those 4 towns. We're currently working on a joint powers agreement so we can, you know, work together in however we engage the base, and to use each other's right of ways. I mean, we don't abut the base. You know, that's always kind of been we tap dance a little bit because the abutting communities are typically the ones that work with them. So it's been great to join that conversation, and all of the towns have been very excited to have Barnstable join that. We've been planning for wastewater needs a lot longer than many of those, and we've been committing resources. Again, a tribute to, you know, Jim Crocker and those before that really created our fund. You know, we've been working towards having funds available to really get after sewering. So those towns are very happy to see us join. And in fact, Sandwich, I think this upcoming town meeting this Monday, we actually have articles on there for easements. So this is real. We're really making progress and getting after. So if this does materialize, we're going to be able to move forward expeditiously, which is great.
We're going to call it a fluid plan.
There you go. I like it. I like
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us,
Oh,
Andy.
you bet. Thanks for having me.
Up next, things to do, places to go, and people to meet. The Barnstable County Regional Substance Abuse Council will host its 3rd annual Parent Summit to provide parents and caregivers with the practical know-how to steer their children away from the dangers of substance abuse. The summit, which begins at 12 p.m. on May 19th at the Cape Codder Resort and Spa, 1225 I&O Road, Hyannis, will feature nationally recognized relationship and family expert Lynn Griffin as the keynote speaker. There is no charge for admission, although pre-registration is required. More info and registration can be found at www.bchumanservices.net. Town Council tonight, 7 p.m., Barnstable Town Hall, 2nd floor hearing room, or watch live on Channel 18. Tonight's agenda includes the funding for the operating budget for fiscal year 2020. Comments, suggestions, accolades? Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Email us or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works for you. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.